Get ready for Super Saturday here at the Netball, the Commonwealth Games. It's New Zealand up against Jamaica.
Umpires for this match, Sharon Kelly and Michelle Fippard. Michelle Fippard, top of screen. Sharon Kelly running to the right. That's her making a call as we open this match.
On the goal line, goal line.
With New Zealand working to the right of screen in the first quarter.
Deja vu as New Zealand and Jamaica met in the Manchester semi-final. New Zealand winning that by 18 to go on and win silver 4 years ago.
Simone Forbes feeds Davis. She wants to head out to Bryan, and the skipper goes baseline looking for the first score of this semi-final, and she gets it.
Well, it's against the centre. What a brilliant start for Jamaica. They have, of course, the centres in netball alternating irrespective of the goal scorer, so a chance to go out 2-0 at the start of this semi-final.
Elaine Davis drops it at the feet of Nadine Bryan. But Davu will come away. A New Zealand ball, Temapara George across to Wilson. Lovely delivery, no, too much on that for Irene van Dijk. A little shaky in the opening 60 seconds, New Zealand. Evering will go over the top. Spots Peterson Dunn. Through the centre, third Gibson. And topping little tip over the top. The Jamaicans in control through Bryan. Across now to Davis, well outside the circle. Inside pass is all but perfect. And Simone Forbes stretching, overbalancing. And New Zealand will take the resultant ball into play.
Reminiscent of Simone Forbes falling out of court to score the goal to equalise with Australia. She won't leave anything on the court. She'll put it all out trying. But a gap there, that was a dangerous sign for New Zealand, the amount of space they allowed Forbes on the drive to the post. New Zealand will want to start this game and will want to shake off Jamaica as quickly as they can.
Colling gets the score, and New Zealand are on their way in this semi-final. Centre pass to come, Temapara George at full tilt. It's a turnover, Jamaican ball, and they rush it through the centre third. Peterson Dunn involved across now to Bryan. And good hands by Davu. Lovely interception. Wilson the target. She is infringed.
Nicola Gibson out of play for contact is one of the more heavily penalised of the Jamaican side. 68 penalties against her coming into this match.
Colling looking for 2 from 2. Leaves it short. Van Dijk unable to collect the spill.
There's always so much focus paid on Irene van Dijk, who is the top shooter in the competition, the most accurate, and has posted 374 coming into this match. So with 5 games behind them, you can see the dependency on Van Dijk as the scorer. But Colling, a very accurate shooter, dual international for New Zealand, will also play a huge role.
Elaine Davis, who's shooting at 86% in this tournament, gives the New Zealanders some early concerns. Spearing ball to the captain outside the circle. Support coming from Hilton. And it'll be a Jamaican ball.
New Zealand will go into this with a game plan to play off the player, to play the space. They don't want to mix it physically with Jamaica, and they really do exploit the offline defence superbly.
Centre pass for the Silver Ferns, as they are known. Scarlett, long ball, and Irene van Dijk will see plenty of that during this semi-final.
The big ask for young Casey Evering, who gives away 10 years experience to Van Dijk. Irene van Dijk, 33. In fact, 4 of this New Zealand starting 7 are 29 years or older, so a wealth of experience.
And a Scarlett heads towards Langman. In turn to Colling. Temapara George, nicely weighted, too much carry for Evering. And now the New Zealand side starts to find some rhythm.
And the beautiful face of Irene van Dijk as she holds position strongly and then acknowledges a teammate for great work down the court.
Wide ball puts Bryan into space. And Davis pushes back, gets it to Hilton. In turn to Forbes, who rushed towards the post, not confident the shot would drop, and justifiably so.
Great support play from the New Zealand defence. Vili Davu, former Fijian international, falling out of court. Scarlett watching her ever so closely.
Colling pushes wide to Wilson, the captain. Gives it away. Now Jamaica can work from their defensive third. Peterson Dunn back to Evering.
You see New Zealand floating through the middle, setting up and packing 5 plays in the middle. 3-second call, so the defensive plan working well for New Zealand. A very clean operation defensively at the moment. That will be crucial.
New Zealand by 1. Wilson into the corner. Gets Colling.
You see the 2-on-1 on Van Dijk, and Colling with a beautiful drive pulls one of them away. It opens the space for Van Dijk, and she'll make them pay.
She's a superstar of world netball, Irene Van Dijk, and fed again, this time by Wilson. And the New Zealanders starting to gain some control. Early days, we've gone just on 6 minutes in the first quarter.
Well, contrast the unforced error from the centre from Jamaica with the slick hands of Jamaica as Maureen Hall, the Jamaican coach, just closes her eyes oh so briefly. The hands are very quick in the New Zealand attacking line.
Laura Langman over the top to Van Dijk, and that is just the way they like it. Direct netball, and when you've got a focal point like Irene, why not head in that direction?
Well, this pass from Langman just reminds you how very confident the Silver Ferns are. That was put from the halfway line to the post, put from one of the defensive players. That doesn't happen unless you're on a roll.
Of course, the New Zealanders have only ever been beaten once by Jamaica. That was way back in 2002.
17 consecutive wins for New Zealand over Jamaica. The most recent was late last year, and that was a 35-goal margin. But I think, put that one aside, Jamaica have shown earlier in this game's competition that when they want to, they can run with anyone.
Centre pass for New Zealand. George goes to Van Dijk. Evering gets the contact call.
Penalty counts fairly even across both sides, but Casey Everingham the most penalised with 3 obstructions. Contacts, though, which is often a danger, they're pretty light against the defensive line, so both teams are trying to put out a disciplined start.
Searching pass finds Langman. Wilson into the edge of the circle.
Casey Evering at keeper for Jamaica is really being beaten on a beautifully placed ball to Van Dijk. She's trying to match a one-on-one, and it's almost a mission impossible. It does take good pressure over the feeders.
How do you think Casey Evering would have slept last night, knowing what's in front of her at the present time as Van Dijk is fed again? It's a 7-goal break to New Zealand after Jamaica had the early going. Peterson Dunn across. They work now to Hilton. Here's Bryan. Low ball, makes it difficult for Forbes. Regathers, and now Hilton across to Forbes, trying to work a combination.
It's good work inside the circle from Davu and Scarlett, and the pressure outside's been incredible. It does force the error. That penalty not set by the Jamaican feeder, and it's been turned over. Netball very precise in asking the players to take the penalty in exactly the right place.
It'll be Dean Wilson. Bounce pass from Colling has Temapara George scrambling.
She's allowed to bounce it once to gain possession, but it never really lifted from the floorboards.
Linda Colling.
But Belinda Colling's one of 2 players in this line who are making their 3rd Commonwealth Games appearance. Anna Robury, the other, one of the interchange players.
Yes, they've been denied goals so far at Commonwealth Games level. Searching pass, looking for Forbes. It slips through her fingers, a New Zealand ball.
This is a threatening display by New Zealand, at least initially in this match. 11-4 with just over 5 minutes remaining. Very focused, very aware that Jamaica anywhere near you, 10 goals, ask Australia, are a dangerous commodity. Casey Williams on screen, one of the young defenders, one of the options in the back line for New Zealand.
Well, the New Zealanders have rotated their lineup through the early games, and at this point, of course, Ruth Aitken will be putting the best of the best out there.
Oh, absolutely. There was a scare earlier over Belinda Colling with, on 2 occasions, time called for her right ankle, and they've naturally enough wrapped her in cotton. Well, of course, they lost Jodie Tahuna, who has been starting in front of Irene van Dijk for most of 2005, just days before the start of the game. So she went home with facing knee surgery, so they naturally, to lose Colling off the back of that would have really sent shockwaves through the line. Wonderful turn, great timing. Out of the hands of Temapara George. And Ruth Aitken, well, she looks like she's breathing. And that's a good thing, first quarter against Jamaica.
They're on the move again. Pushing it to Wilson, thought about Van Dijk, ignored that momentarily. Now she goes back to the goal shooter, and she heads baseline. Big crowd watching New Zealand dominate with less than 4 minutes to play in the opening quarter.
Irene van Dijk on 12 straight goals for no misses.
Where you are, goal defence. That's it.
Jamaica lead to steady. Bryan has it. Across to Forbes.
Contact centre, where you are.
Temapara George called for contact. Now Forbes inside the circle. Not a lot of cohesion about this Jamaican lineup as George comes over the top.
Can't underestimate how well the New Zealand defenders are teaming up. We talked about the dominance of Simone Forbes. She stands at 190, but Davu also at 190, and Anna-Marie Scarlett just ahead of her, 187. So you've got a two-pronged defence. They're not just staying tight on her, they're off the body so they can get up and contest, but they're moving, changing the spaces all the time, so it's making it difficult for the Jamaican feeders.
Elaine Davis has been the go-to lady in this first quarter for her country. Wilson, Van Dijk, Colling cuts towards the baseline and get the contact call.
She's been the go-to girl, but has only had 5 opportunities to shoot, so Jamaica starved of possession. That's been the telling story.
Colling kept that ball alive. Irene van Dijk, the recipient.
Jamaica with 8 attempts so far in this first quarter. New Zealand with 17, so more than double the scoring opportunities.
Hilton pushes wide to Forbes. Now Bryan searching for Davis. She's surrounded by dark uniforms, but manages to pierce and penetrate, scoring to give Jamaica their 7th.
Advantage break goal attack.
There'll be great crowd support here for Jamaica because being many of them Australians, they'll be fickle enough to want to hold off the Silver Ferns. I mean, really, it's not a good option either way. They're both brilliant teams, and I think Australia will have to look after themselves. But Jamaica will find support from the crowd if they can manage a couple of turnover situations, and that might be something that breaks the flow here for New Zealand, because at the moment, the reigning world champions pretty well giving a lesson in netball early on to Jamaica. It's the world #1 and the world #3. Jamaica, of course, bronze medalists in Manchester.
Rare mistake by the New Zealanders. It'll be Gibson, 23-year-old, to get Jamaica on the move again. Bryan's lead is ignored.
Both benches have gone to the tunnels to warm up. That's pretty standard for teams at this level. They send the entire bench out in preparedness in case the changes are going to come.
Where you are.
Tamara Hilton a little slow to get to her feet. In fact, she's not.
And the umpire's deciding that the game will go on as Van Dijk scores, gets the roll.
They'll probably stop now. Their point was that it was against the run of play. You need to call the time. And Tamara Hilton, we could see, was putting a T with her hands, but at the pace these umpires move unsighted.
And the explanation coming is that she didn't hear, the umpire that is, the request from the Jamaicans.
Also a tendency that if you think it can be dealt with without disrupting possession, in other words, once it's been scored, can we come back and address it then? They will take that pathway. See Hilton top of screen trying to come round Langman, really in a contacting situation herself, and she comes off the worst, falling awkwardly. She tries to call time immediately, but she would have had her back to Michelle Fippard. And in fairness, Sharon Kelly would have been sprinting to the right to be in good position for the attacking phase.
Not such a bad break, though, for the Jamaicans. They're down by 10. And the question's already being asked of the world number 3.
Well, they didn't waste any time. Maureen Hall has just walked across the court, taken the patches off Tamara Hilton. And we will see a new player introduced for Jamaica at wing attack. Limping to the sideline, Tamara Hilton leaves the game as Jamaica trails by 10 into the final minute.
Wilson across to Van Dyke. George tries to thread the pass through. That was ambitious.
And a little nudge from Van Dyke. They have possession now through the contact.
Temapara George, she charged looking for the interception, couldn't bring it in, and Forbes kept it alive acrobatically.
And she always gets up. Simone Forbes, such a warrior.
Speaking of warriors, there's one, Belinda Colling, unheralded in some respects, standing alongside Irene Van Dyke, but she is integral to this lineup. Davis drops it at the feet of Campbell, who has replaced Hilton.
Willie Darvu gives a big yes.
18-7.
Well, it's very difficult to defeat a team that's had so much more possession than you. And if we compare the two shooters, Van Dyke with 15 from 15, Elaine Davis 5 from 6. So lack of ball is really hurting Jamaica. That coupled with a heavy penalty toll. Their back line have incurred 14 penalties. The back line of New Zealand just 5 in that first period. So none of the significant stats running Jamaica's way, and a bit of work to be done psychologically too, I'd suggest.
Loose ball, Temapara George scoops it up, and New Zealand push inside their circle. Van Dyke, athletic, so versatile, and she scores to rub salt into this wound for Jamaica.
Campbell, of course, on now replaces Hilton, who left seconds remaining in the first quarter.
Inside the circle.
Darvu and Scarlett minding Davis. Forbes slips in behind the defence. Doesn't get the score. Lots of hands around that ball.
The reach that Scarlett and Darvu collectively can extend fills the circle, really puts pressure on them. Forbes tidy under the post. That's just her third of the match.
And for New Zealand, if it does get a little untidy in defence, they've got the likes of De Bruyne, Casey Williams, plenty of options.
De Bruyne, of course, like Irene Van Dyke, former South African international, both looking extremely comfortable now in the New Zealand line. And Willie Darvu, the bookend at the other end, formerly for Fiji. So quite cosmopolitan, but they look like family now. It's a happy and skillful unit.
And they have come to play in the first semi-final at the Commonwealth Games. Campbell pushes out to Davis.
Contact centre.
Jamaican ball. Forbes dishes to Davis.
Contact on the ball.
Worth remembering at this point too that within their pool the closest to New Zealand was England, and that was a 15-goal margin.
Scarlett streaming through the centre third, gets it to Colling, pushes back to Langman. Nicely worked to Wilson. New Zealand.
Casey Evering was working the feet beautifully, then really trying to sit well on Van Dyke and block the space. She draws the disruption, now the turnover. That was strong work from the Jamaican goalkeeper.
Promising passage of play here from Jamaica. Campbell floats it across to Forbes, not keen to go to.
Davis has a one-on-one on Willie Darvu at the moment, but Jamaica not quick enough to put it to the circle. The longer they wait, the more the New Zealand defenders will work together, and they can't afford that. Really need to try and pick her up when she's just working against Darvu.
Davu has been penalised. Davis, surrounded by New Zealand defenders, comes up with the ball and gets the goal. The margin is 10. The centre pass for Jamaica to follow. Forbes, dangerous interception. Brilliantly done there by Wilson. Van Dijk slows it down. Back to George. Outside the circle, goes left, goes right, and then Evering picks off the pass.
Well, uncharacteristic misfeed from Temapara George, but she knew she was flirting with the 3-second rule, so she was keen to offload.
Contact shooter.
And if you wonder about the experienced heads and composure in this Silver Fern line, Adine Wilson, of course, current captain, but Colling and Robury, who's currently on the bench, also former New Zealand captains.
Van Dijk gets the score, but Langman at the other end of the court can take much of the credit.
She is a tiny player, but huge in this New Zealand lineup.
Now it's Belinda Colling's turn. And the headache is turning into a migraine for the Jamaicans. Campbell goes into the corner where Davis is positioned.
Of course, the New Zealand defence is set up to come forward on any high looping cross-court ball, so Jamaica can't afford the lateral passes. They can afford the deep ones from the centre or transverse line to the post in a one-on-one.
Call goes against Temapara George. Opportunity for Campbell to push it to Peterson Dunn.
Peterson Dunn at goal defence for Jamaica was actually to coach the line at these games, but they introduced her back into the playing unit, and Maureen Hall came out of retirement to be caretaker coach. Peterson Dunn will pick up the reins after Melbourne.
Forbes feeds it back to Peterson Dunn. Over the top, Davis on a searching lead.
Well, 5 minutes gone already. It's a much better outing from Jamaica. They're running goal for goal. It won't be enough for the result, but at least they've come out challenging and contesting.
All arms and legs there from Scarlett as she makes contact. And Elaine Davis, who was the third highest scorer at the '99 World Championships in New Zealand, which subsequently led to her being named the Jamaican Sportswoman of the Year. She knows the big time and loves it. George and Colling.
Beautiful cutting run from Colling, taking advantage of the close attention being paid to Irene Van Dijk, and that's the beauty of the New Zealand line. Focus too much on Van Dijk, enter Colling.
The margin is 10. Jamaica, though, as Anne Sargent suggested, just working their way back into the contest against the odds tonight.
Elaine Davis then coming out to assist out of the circle, which is fine, except nobody on strike for them, and it's really difficult to get back around Davu and find your position, and they pay for it as Davis goes on a contact.
New Zealand cruising through the centre, third Temapara George, under little or no pressure. Silver Ferns to retain possession.
So both teams playing a similar format when you get to the goal circles. The taller shooter on strike, holding space to post. The smaller goal attack, making the moves, trying to spread the defence, making the cuts, the double plays. With both Australia and England, who step up next, more movement and shared role between the two shooters, so we should see contrasting style.
And lucky there for Casey Evering. She did all the hard work to almost produce the turnover, and as it stands, Van Dijk hits the score.
Interesting when you look at the mid-courts for both sides. For Jamaica, it's pretty well Nadine Bryan at centre that's making all the plays, all the feeds. Also Simone Forbes. Their wing attack not really having an active role in delivering to the shooters.
Forbes knocked away by Scarlett. Those long arms are tough to get across.
Nice work then by Davis, who suckered Davu into the back move and then front cutter.
Yes.
And if you're watching this match thinking these girls are overly polite in checking and double checking with the umpires, it's because the setting of the penalty quite pedantic in this game. If it's not set or the player out of play isn't set, you could sacrifice the penalty you've worked so hard to earn.
Peterson Dunn, bouncing ball. Cross to Forbes, pushes wide. Now, where's the lead?
Forbes sneaking through the back of Davis.
And so the captain, from close range, lets it go nicely from the fingers.
This has been a sustained effort by Jamaica. They've been running for more than half of this quarter, goal for goal. It's going to take more than that, but at least they're building their place back in the game, because the first quarter set it up to be a disaster, and you can understand if the head goes down enough, the fight completely goes. But Jamaica have come back with some spirit.
As Langman clears the area across to Wilson, promising build-up by New Zealand. George returns the favour to the captain, and she delightfully dishes off to Colling.
Those two very much share the feeding role. 11 feeds apiece from Wilson and George.
The pocket rocket, as she's known, Timapara George.
Well, by George, that was a brilliant feed. That was placed centimetre perfect.
Yes, the mother of two. Some of the New Zealanders have brought their family across for this occasion.
Van Dyke and Colling, the other mothers.
The held ball, Jamaica, because of their lack of options inside the circle and this swarming New Zealand defence, really under the pump.
And not too many places to go with an alternate ways to play the game, or players. If they introduce Latoya, she really is a tall shooter, plays the same sort of game as Elaine Davis, but isn't as experienced.
8 goals to 7 in this second term, favouring Jamaica, but it's still New Zealand by 12. Just on 5 minutes to play. George, slick hands from Wilson, the captain. That was really travelling as it reached Van Dyke.
Adine Wilson, the captain for New Zealand, has really lifted in this game. Look, she's a beautiful athlete and just a pleasure to watch in the way she moves. But she's sprayed a few unforced feeds earlier in the games, just trying stuff that wasn't on and wishful thinking, but rarely an error so far in this match. So it's disciplined.
Talented lady is Adine Wilson, has a double degree in law, just to go with her captaincy of this New Zealand side. Forbes now works it to Davis. Mid-range shot is on. Doesn't look like missing. And the Jamaicans, with support in the crowd, they want this team to really push the world champions this evening, as Wilson receives in the corner.
Offside, free pass, inside the circle. That's it.
Offside call in netball. Offside refers to going into an area other than your own. It's not in relation to the ball.
Colling feeds Van Dyke again, and I wonder whether Irene Van Dyke takes the likes of Belinda Colling out to dinner from time to time to say, thanks for helping me out on all those big occasions.
Well, I'm sure it's reciprocated. Van Dyke has put up 23 goals from 24 attempts. And it's not unusual, in fact, it's almost the expected of Van Dyke to post something like 40 or 41 out of 42, 43 in the toughest of internationals.
Well, Belinda Colling almost had too much time on her hands then and made a simple error. Campbell. Across to Peterson-Dunn, searching past.
I'm sure, Mark, they're not relaxed, the world champions, because they're too professional for that, but with 3 minutes to go to half-time and a 14-goal lead, it's probably a pleasurable way to play a semi-final.
Enjoying their work as Scarlett goes to Colling and turns to George, and now Van Dyke slips away from Evering.
Evering, so strong at the start of this quarter, is just starting to look a little dejected. But all you can say to Casey Everingham is that there's a lot before you in that queue.
Party trick from Van Dyke. Got it back inside to George, and now Colling delays the shot. A rare miss from the New Zealanders, and Bryan has it inside the defensive third.
Slowed down by the New Zealand press. Good work from Peterson-Dunn, whose experience looks beyond the press.
Forbes, who hasn't put up many shots this evening.
No, she's posted 4 from 6.
Almost reluctant from mid-range to go for the shot.
Throw into Jamaica. Forbes leaves the circle, just trying to create some spaces there for Elaine Davis, but there's so much tight work being done out the circle from Langman and George that it's hard to see beyond the arms, let alone place it over the top of the arms and then through the circle defenders.
Go shooter.
And this time it's Elaine Davis penalised.
And if it's not punishing enough to be put out of play, having your opponent in your ear go, yes, probably is upsetting Elaine Davis. Davu is relishing this outing. The New Zealand keeper playing quite a theatrical game.
Well, there is a intimidation factor about her.
Well, I guess it's not footy sledging, but it would have a fairly high annoyance factor.
You can certainly look over your shoulder with Billy Davu heading in your direction.
I think that probably the next elbow will just get sharpened ever so slightly.
Wilson, sharp ball to Langman, in turn to Colling. Now George edges towards the circle.
Peterson Dunn and Colling really working each other hard. Peterson Dunn goes then for use of the elbow, but they're both of them really putting in the work.
Outside the circle.
Getting a little physical.
Well, I guess a glance at the scoreboard would be nothing but frustrating for Jamaica, and the niggles and setting up the contacts, being in the space, maybe a bit more physical, expected to come, the more dejected they feel. Great work then from Simone Forbes.
Interception is on. Bryan pops it to Davis. Long range shot. She's going to go for it.
Brilliant
and
shot.
Scores.
Brilliant shot, and also a brilliant jump from Scarlett, who was light and high, beautiful position over the ball, then landed cleanly. For both players, wonderful execution of their respective skills.
Half-time has arrived. Back into this match now for the Jamaicans.
Oh, tough. I'd say impossible other than watching them fight back against Australia. I'm sure they'll contest it. The problem for them was that even when they found their rhythm and managed to go goal for goal, it's just not enough. That first quarter may well have sealed their fate. No changes to either lineup. So as we mentioned in the second quarter, Maureen Hall has other players, but it would be a similar format, and I really do think she has her best on court. As Davu thwarts a pass to Forbes.
Over the top to Davis, and from underneath the post gets the score to get Jamaica on the move.
Changes though for New Zealand, who've introduced Casey Williams to goal defence. She replaces Scarlett. Langman and Davu, the other two pivots in defence. And the forward line is as it started. Love to see the introduction of Anna Robury at some stage to this match. She's just a world-class mid-quarter. Seems a waste on the bench, but gosh, look at the choices there for Ruth Aitken.
You just wonder if the New Zealanders do get this match under control by three-quarter time, whether they would mix up their lineup.
Well, I guess I probably would really hope that Anna Robury in particular would go on. The other they may play with is one of their young shooters who I think has held up well at this level. She stepped up well. That's Tutaya, Maria Tutai, who's come from their World Youth line. Of course, New Zealand are the reigning world champions in both open and 21 and under divisions in netball.
Contact goal defence. Inside.
New Zealand ball.
The introduction of Williams in defence, they lose nothing in height. Williams at 187. This is good news for New Zealand, sorry Mark, in that one of the dangers of drawing Jamaica, apart from the fact that they can run with you and cause the upset, is the physical nature of their game, and that always a danger the day before you're hoping to contest your next game. So to get through it but scarred would not have been a good thing. At the moment, New Zealand looking very comfortable and like everything's just sitting orderly in its place.
And Davu continues to track every move of Elaine Davis, who gets clear on this occasion.
She really has not let her side down. Davis coming into this quarter was shooting 13 from 14. Irene Van Dijk 24 from 25. So Van Dijk with more possession, but both shooters just the one miss each, and that's phenomenal shooting under the pressure.
George lays the pass. Irene Van Dijk, she enjoys her work. She has a good rapport with the umpires. Not a bad trait to have.
Well, she's a teacher, Irene, so I guess she just has that wonderful ability to work with people, also to bring the best out of them, and has a lovely manner on court. Her husband and child, of course, with her in New Zealand. They moved the whole family for her to pursue her netball and to what they thought was a very safe environment.
Making ball off the hands of Belinda Colling. And now things are just going a little pear-shaped for Jamaica.
Inexperience from Casey Evering, who stepped up to take the throw-in but was in the wrong position, and for not setting the penalty, it now goes to New Zealand. They took the throw-in in the correct place. Salt to the wound for Jamaica.
And New Zealand have started this third quarter with a 5-goal-to-3 run. Davis steps inside. And the goalkeeper this time. And Davu, she doesn't want to give an inch. Davis gets the ball to drop.
That's an advantage goal for Jamaica. One of the New Zealand defenders talking in an out-of-play position that's deemed as participating. We should mention too that Sharon Kelly and Michelle Fippard, and I noticed Jackie Jashari is the reserve umpire on the sideline. Compliment to those umpires. They have been appointed to these playoff matches, judged each day on their own performances by an appointments panel that's elected by International Netball. Little push off from Davis, but Michelle Fippard doesn't deem it interferes with the game.
And she fires over the top of Casey Williams. Temapara George out of the centre. Wilson is infringed.
That's been advanced because the contact was deemed to be deliberate, intentional. Sometimes you'll see if there's a professional foul, a deliberate contact, a deliberate offside around the circle edge, the umpires will advance it to the post. So it's a tough game, but ask them to really contest it to the utmost, but to be absolutely technically perfect in those pressure situations where there's not much space to work your trade.
As the New Zealand lead continues to build, a loose ball. Davis mops it up, and Davu slaps her thigh, admonishing herself. Forbes, haven't seen her shoot much, and that was another chance, but she saw out of the corner of her eye Elaine Davis in space.
No, she's very much the setting up role there to distract the defenders, open the space and feed Elaine. In fact, it's Simone that's done more feeding to Elaine than any of the mid-court players. Marion Campbell has been very quiet since she came on, replacing Tamara Hilton. Just 3 feeds into the circle, and as a wing attack, that's your bread and butter. That's the job description.
Well, it slipped through some hands, but luckily ended up with Brian. And this crowd really not a factor at the moment. I'm sure they'd love to get behind Jamaica. Wilson, high ball, spills free, ends up with Forbes now, and Davu.
Read so easily. She had a lot of time. It was telegraphed then by Forbes, and Davu will certainly enjoy the eating of those intercepts.
She saw it coming a long way out as George stays onside to Colling. Mid-range shot. Delays and then shoots cleanly.
And Max would be pleased with his mum. Colling bucketing that shot. Davu there reading. Look at the smile on her face. She's really enjoying playing in front of this capacity crowd. It must be hard for New Zealand now not to let the brain slip ahead to a gold medal possibility. With a scoreline like this, they must surely think they're home and hosed.
And the question mark is, to Australia and England. cast an eye over this, or best to focus on the next match, the semi-final, to see who will go on to meet the Silver Ferns?
Well, I'm sure before they take the court they'll be well aware, but I don't think there'd be any effort really in paying attention to it now. They would be heads down.
And the roar you may have heard was the Australian team just wandering in the stands. They're now disappearing into the bowels here at the multi-purpose venue to prepare for their match.
So sneaking a quick glimpse, but Norma Plummer would well and truly have their heads screwed on, their eyes on the game plan.
Peterson Dunn receives it inside the centre third across to Brian. Davis with not much intent. That lead is ignored.
Look at the New Zealand defence working as a unit. 4 players in absolute sync.
And Elaine Davis with those knees heavily bandaged, protected.
Uncontested by Jamaica. New Zealand in brilliant form.
And there's some tall timber hitting the floor here. Irene van Dijk gets up with a smile. Evering with possession. Brian, loose pass. Over a third, though.
I was watching Simone Forbes float through on that. I thought she actually landed a foot in, and the crowd now doesn't like the niggling that's going on court. They're responding and retaliating to some physical interchanges.
And the standard has just dropped a bit here because possession is being thrown away. Wilson across to George. Van Dijk falls to the floor once more. But the sting has gone out of particularly Jamaica.
Well, it's tough to take a hiding and keep smiling.
Centre pass again for the New Zealanders. Wilson under the post. Brilliant delivery, and Van Dijk eagerly accepts.
When these two last met late last year, the scoreline was 67-32. And you couldn't fathom, after watching that enthralling contest between Australia and Jamaica earlier at these games, a 54-all draw, that this would happen. But we have seen it with some of the participating countries. Others have been true to form and pretty well on a straight line day to day. Some, though, have been up and down, played their hearts out one day, forgotten to set the alarm the next.
It's a 21-goal advantage to New Zealand. Davis slips through her hands, and it is beginning to unravel for the Jamaicans. Davu, Langman, and now Wilson.
Penalty counter, as you would expect from the trend of the game, heavier against Jamaica. 43 against those receiving heavy attention, in particular Oberon Peterson and Casey Evering.
Forbes goes across to Campbell, who turned 22 yesterday. This is not the birthday she was hoping for, but a goal nonetheless. And Maureen Hall, can she see light at the end of this tunnel, or is it just a New Zealand freight train coming in the opposite direction?
I don't know about light, but I think she'd like to see full time on the scoreboard.
Well, you have to give it to New Zealand. They have been the benchmark of world netball for some time now, and they really have, over the past 12 months and even before that, really developed a team which is one of the best.
Well, I guess at the time when they take the mantle of world champion, the margin then so narrow, just the two, that people would still argue for a little while who was the best. But really, the last 12 months of consolidation for them, there can be no doubt they come to these games as favourites. I think Australia, though, through the week has shown great improvement, and that they are up to the task, big as it is.
Forbes finally makes a shot. Encouragement for the Jamaicans with less than 3 minutes to play, though. They are down by 20. Wilson, long ball to Van Dijk, and before you know it, New Zealand have responded. Forbes, sharp ball to Campbell, and that was telegraphed to Davis. Davu read it superbly, and New Zealand streaming up the court. George, Van Dijk looks for an option. Langman is infringed.
And although the Silver Ferns struggling to finish that passage, it is another example of how far down the Jamaican heads are, that New Zealand could manage a fast break at that speed with that fluency against the world number 3.
Heading for their first defeat of the Commonwealth Games. Jamaica, of course, the draw against Australia. And unfortunately for them, it's come in a semi-final. This big crowd would have loved to have seen a more competitive performance.
Tough too. They've got to back up. Tomorrow they will play off against either Australia or England for bronze. So that's the tough job ahead for Coach Maureen Hall, to lift them after what will be a demoralising loss, because there's a medal to play for.
Davu has been a pillar of strength for New Zealand tonight. Langman in turn to George. This is pretty to watch. And Wilson to Colling, and she just can't get the roll. Forbes inside the centre third. Now Davis has come a long way from home. They work it back to Bryan from Gibson. Davis pushes baseline. And scoring opportunities have just been so much harder to produce.
Well, I think it's been a wonderfully organised defence for New Zealand. There's only been the couple of opportunities that they've managed to have the New Zealand goal defence distracted and not back working with Davu. In a one-on-one, the Jamaican fetus can find Elaine Davis. But you see there, Williams linking with Davu. They're off the body, but they're filling space. Happy to let Forbes roam on the outer edge of the circle.
Less than a minute to play before three-quarter time. Some contented New Zealand fans in the stands. Their side out by 20.
But also a very appreciative crowd. Great support then for Jamaica. The crowd aware of how hard they're finding it and rewarding them for the positives.
Pedersen done, a couple of defenders. In that case, Irene van Dijk casting the role as a goalkeeper almost.
Thought there might have been a bit of a Malawi influence then on Jamaica's play down court. They looked for the short, the cross court, back sideways. Just not sustainable by Malawi standards.
Lack of commitment there from Campbell as Langman, who is ever present. Probably time will beat Jamaica here as Campbell gets it to Forbes. Will this score count? Three-quarter time arrives. New Zealand is celebrating a wonderful performance by their world champion netballers. They lead by 20, 1 quarter to play, and they've made some adjustments to their lineup in the final term.
Well, there's no point boasting the depth of your squad if you don't use it, particularly when you've got a 20-goal lead. And we see Anna Robury, world-class mid-court, coming on at centre, replacing Temapara George, and Maria Tutaya coming on at goal attack, replacing Belinda Colling. We mentioned earlier, Robury, a former New Zealand captain. Tutaya comes up from their World Youth team. So wonderful to see so many players introduced, and in fairness, sensible use of the interchange by Ruth Aitken, who really made sure they'd stamped authority on this game. Didn't leave it at a 10-goal margin where they know from experience Jamaica can run back. But great to see those players on court. Williams and Davu working the circle combination in defence to finish.
Bryan gives it to Davis. They work a combination. She heads towards the post. It doesn't go. And Billy Davu is the recipient. New Zealand streaming the ball through the centre third to Tyre. They work it to Van Dijk from Wilson, and she scores.
Van Dijk has posted, coming into this quarter, 38 goals for just 2 misses. She's shooting at 95% against the world number 3, knowing that all the focus is on her, all the contest against her.
Brilliantly brought down there by Forbes, who in fact is in the United States on a volleyball scholarship, so she is a versatile sportswoman.
Well, she and Scarlett will have some things to discuss if they ever choose to. Scarlett, who started at goal defence for New Zealand, renowned for her beach volleyball as well as her netball.
It's a 21-goal advantage to New Zealand in the first semi-final here in the Commonwealth Games. Important Jamaica finishes with the head up and, of course, try and win the quarter. I guess that would be the instructions from Maureen Hall.
Absolutely. You don't, I mean, it's hard enough to watch your players being comprehensively beaten. It's hard to watch them with their heads down. So the only message she can give them is, let's make a contest out of this final 15 minutes, and to remind them they've got to step up. They've got another day in the office and they need to make the most of it. And this quarter is about preparing for either Australia or England.
Centre pass from Robury. Langman across to Wilson, to Tyre, and the skipper heads towards Van Dyke, who just eases off Evering. Valuable recuperation now for some of these New Zealand starters who've done their job. They've got 3 quarters under their belt. They'll have a good night's sleep and no doubt prepare for the gold medal match with some certainty.
Ruth Aitken has been smiling all game, but the thought that she's, and I touch wood as I say it, that she's gotten through this match, #1 into gold medal playoff, and importantly with players intact, will make that smile like a split watermelon. That's a really important factor with these games running back to back. Of course, unlike Australia and England, these two teams have the benefit of warming down and then sitting watching their adversaries.
Still to come, Australia and England in the second semi-final here at the multi-purpose venue in the heart of Melbourne. 10,000 people coming along tonight to watch what should be a very competitive second semi.
Well, I have really enjoyed our home at the State Netball and Hockey Centre, but it was a buzz to come through the heart of Melbourne, to integrate through the crowds and all the other venues. Brilliant feel in Melbourne for these games. Full credit to all those who've been behind it, volunteers who've worked tirelessly.
The ball to Anna Robury. She's getting her first run of the night.
Penalty has been advanced against Nicola Gibson.
Interception by Evering. Here's Bryan. Loops it over the top to Davis. She drops it at the feet of Campbell.
And you see Davis working out of the circle a fair bit now, I guess just showing how frustrated she must be from lack of possession. Again, forced on the circle edge. Davu having a field day.
And some pressure on those vulnerable knees of Elaine Davis. It bobbles and finally drops for Jamaica.
That was number 25 for Elaine Davis.
We've got a centre pass to follow. Davis lopes after that. Forbes. Campbell almost lost a footing.
Contact, pass or shot. Goal defence, contact, pass or shot.
A couple of back-to-back goals must feel like a spree for Jamaica. It's been a long time between drinks for them. They've just got a little run going.
Step back onto
Davu won't want to argue, not in front of a predominantly Australian crowd and against Sharon Kelly, who quickly puts her fingers to the mouth and puts her in her place.
Yes, there's no answering back in this competition.
It's also not a good confidence level to take into a gold medal playoff where umpires won't relish any assistance from the players.
Well, really, we'll be hoping that perhaps a new combination is wearing white tomorrow.
Well, it will be neutral umpiring in netball. That's definitely going to be the case.
To Tyre as Temapara George. Her night's done. An injury time, a Jamaican call. We'll check that, but it might be Elaine Davis, who has some concerns surrounding her.
Just thinking back to Davu's antics, given that this is being held in Australia and the Australian netball fans, quite an educated group. Not that long ago when these two contested last year, the papers really came out hard on the physicality of that match, and particularly how aggressive Dawu was on late contacts, and the crowd reacted fiercely to that, and she doesn't really need to remind them anymore. Otherwise, it won't be a welcoming committee that greets her. when she enters the building tomorrow. But boy, has she been enjoying this outing so far.
Not much left for Maureen Hall to say. The scoreboard indicates an 18-goal lead to New Zealand.
Well, they were 20 coming on at three-quarter time, the gap. So, as you would hope, Maureen Hall has at least reminded them, keep some focus, let's run with them, take away from the game that you ran with the world champions for the last 15 and also for most of the second. And maybe they start off tomorrow where they end off today.
Davis gets to her feet, heads back to a position as Bryan takes the centre pass. 8.5 minutes to play in this semi-final. Forbes across to Bryan. Davis is double-teamed.
That was a stepping call, a hop against Forbes. I'm not sure why she didn't offload. She had Davis on good position. You can see they're very determined to work it down to the circle edge, not risk the high ball and the intercept.
Beautiful pass over the top to Van Dijk. Still barking instructions, enjoying what she's seeing. Wilson in mid-flight across to Van Dijk. That was poetry in motion.
Well, I think the call from Ruth Aitken was very simple. It was well done, Black. And you could wear yourself out saying it in this contest. That last one, perhaps one of their best.
Yes, if we had $1 for every time we mentioned Van Dijk being fed by this New Zealand team, we would certainly be enjoying a wallet full of cash.
Van Dijk has posted 42 goals. I mean, that's quite phenomenal. Single-handedly against world number 3. Adds another. Smooth running for the former South African, who looks very comfortable in the black uniform. Casey Williams at the other end, providing that earlier opportunity.
Wing defence, centre third, over this way, wing.
It'll be a Jamaican ball.
Keep coming, keep coming.
Instructions still coming. As Campbell
Goal attack contact.
was about to offload, but it's going to be the ball to Davu. Williams and Langman link up. And now Wilson fires it to Van Dijk. Robbery.
Goal defence, contact, shot or pass. Yes.
And to Tyre, who has been rather impressive in her time on court during these games.
Yes, I think she's been the best of the rookies for New Zealand. Fashion student,
With
very
designs,
attractive athlete.
with designs on a gold medal, of course. Just over 6 minutes to play here, and New Zealand will cruise through to the gold medal match tomorrow. Bryan goes to Forbes.
Goal shooter.
And once again, the Jamaicans have been penalised.
Oh, they're very frustrated. Eyes go to the ceiling. That's, I think, at least the third consecutive offensive foul. The shooter's being called for contact on their moves as they try to clear some space from this New Zealand defensive machine.
Clean shot from Tutaya, and no question she'd be enjoying her stint on court. The 19-year-old shooting at around 86% heading into this match.
So Liana De Bruyn and Jess Tukey, the only two of the New Zealand squad not to hit the court in this semi-final.
I have to say, a little disappointed with what we've seen tonight. We've covered 34, 35 games during the tournament, and the Jamaicans we were hoping would come and really challenge the world champions.
Yes, I guess, heightened by their performance against Australia. We came with those expectations, and I think they themselves will go away from the match in shock. I mean, that first quarter, we did say at the start of the game that it would be important. Jamaica with the knowledge, say that again, New Zealand with the knowledge of what Jamaica could do against Australia would definitely come to the match wanting to work very hard first quarter to establish the status quo, and they did it brilliantly. 18-7 first quarter break has really knocked the commitment out of the world number 3.
Mid-range shot from Tutaya, doesn't go, and Van Dyke just throws it almost superstitiously over the shoulder, hoping for a teammate to gather.
I guess the flip side of that discussion is that it would be equally dangerous to assume that Jamaica will put this out tomorrow. So whether it's Australia or England that have to play for bronze, not gold, they'd be silly to think that this is a depleted Jamaican side who will turn up tomorrow heads down, because that won't be the case either.
We talked about Ruth Aitken being concerned about a late injury, and Casey Williams has gone down. This doesn't look good for her. With less than 4 minutes to play, teammates came to her quickly, and she is in distress.
Certainly grave concerns. You can see by the closeness of the attention being paid, and that Ruth Aitken has walked over immediately. She hasn't moved from her position, Casey Williams. She was introduced to the game at halftime, replacing Anna Marie Scarlett, another of their young players. Up contesting the rebound. Oh, it's the right ankle and full extension of that lateral ligament, and it doesn't leave you guessing about the ouch factor.
And you'd have to think that Ruth Aitken will get her off court, get the ice on, and make sure that she's ready to roll for tomorrow if required.
Absolutely not an issue. They're just taking their time out of concern for her and respect for her. I mean, her options are to reintroduce Anna Scarlett, or perhaps she might just put out Liana de Bruin for the 3 minutes 50 that remain. As we said, there's so many options in their line. Whilst you regret the injury to Casey Williams, they really can operate just as effectively. Just disappointing for the youngster.
Last we've seen of Casey Williams in this match, she heads towards the bench, consoled by teammates, but no doubt she will be spending every possible moment trying to get that injury up to speed by tomorrow afternoon.
Well, if she can't, she'll be just pushing the others along to get gold for her. Ironically, Anna Marie Scarlett, who came on to replace her, was immediately put out of play. Welcome back, Anna.
A smile from Billy Darbu. Forbes with the shot, but she goes to Davis instead underneath the post.
Oh, she's in all sorts of trouble since coming back to court, Anna Marie Scarlett.
Centre pass for New Zealand. Some concerns on the injury front, but this performance has been first class. Robury over the top, looking for and finding Van Dyke from mid-range. It dropped short.
Won't go down on the ledger, though. The contact call against the goal defence will give her a second chance to complete.
Shooting at 93% before this match, and I suspect it wouldn't have dropped too much from that figure, if at all.
No, she's averaging 95 across this game, so she's going to push it up a little higher. Already top of the table.
Tutaya, and now Scarlett and Robury get involved.
Beautiful hands from Anna Robury, who later this year will marry Jeremy Stanley, former New Zealand All Black. So lots to look forward to.
Lovely feed from Van Dyke across to Tutaya. She gleefully accepts, and the New Zealand charge towards the decider continues. A big win coming up with just on 2 minutes to play. They lead by 24, and perhaps will firmly ensconce themselves as gold medal favourites.
Strong work from Simone Forbes, who screamed round on the front cut and then double plated to get a little closer to the post and finishes. That's her 12th goal of the match. So as you mentioned earlier, Mark, very low scoring from her, but her job out there is really to link to Elaine Davis. The trouble being they just haven't been able to do it enough.
And the swarming New Zealand defence has really made life tough for the 29-year-old captain from Jamaica. Davu, she will not
Jamaica sideline.
give a centimetre until full time.
Jamaica throw in.
Yes, it's Elaine Davis and Nadine Bryan and
Yes, sir.
Peterson Dunn who are the veterans in this Jamaican side.
Forbes can't get there, and Davu knocks it back into play to the advantage of Campbell. Across to Forbes,
Defence from where they first landed.
and the score comes to Jamaica. Less than a minute to play. The Jamaicans disappointed with their performance. New Zealand, of course, have dominated after that opening term, reducing 18 goals to 7.
Advantage center obstruction.
Campbell across to Forbes. Some contact comes from Scarlett.
Yep.
Score comes. 21 goals is the margin. Tutaya was heading towards the post, but it will be a Jamaican ball.
Centre, third.
Nadine Wilson called for stepping. I just didn't see it. I thought it was beautiful flight across the line. I thought it was beautifully quick use of the feet. As was that from Bryan, who's been a little quieter than we've seen in earlier matches, but lovely to see Jamaica finishing with some spirit.
Well, it's been a 13-goal apiece final quarter, so they have rallied. They have kept their heads up, but it's New Zealand heading towards the gold medal match tomorrow. An emphatic display in the first semi-final here at the Commonwealth Games.